What's a simple concept about money that people don't understand and don't get?
Spend less than you earn. It's actually really complex. It's kind of a shitty thing for me to just pop off and say, you should spend less than you make, because there's a lot of people who barely make enough to get by, right? And it's not because they're afraid of working hard. It's not because they don't have education. It's not because of a lot of reasons. It's just the way our capitalistic system is set up. But the fundamental issue is, even if it's very slightly less, you spend less than you earn. If that means you're contributing to your 401k, great. If that means you're putting something in a savings account, great. So getting your calories in more than your calories out is a really important concept for people to grasp with their own personal finances.
Welcome back to another episode of Pints and Professionals. Special thank you to Mike Mejia, Jason Miller, Samuel Lundquist, Ralph Barone, Sean DuPont. Thank you guys for watching. You guys have reached out to me and told me you have been watching these episodes, and thank you so much for that. Every view matters, and it means a lot to me. Hopefully you're getting something out of it. Hopefully it's educating or entertaining. Today on the show, we have Chase Kincannon, a special friend of mine. I met him through my BNI networking group. I can't believe I was doing it with that light on. Anyways, sorry. Met him through my networking group, and he's such an awesome dude. I found out he owned a Airbnb down in Terlingua, Texas, and we instantly became friends. Another inspirational person in my life. He's also a financial planner for individuals, so if you ever need help in that world and need his services, he is an awesome, trusted dude, and I can't thank him enough for being on the show. So without further ado, here's Jason Kincannon. The whole premise of this show is to talk or to engage with people that I find interesting and are doing interesting things with their life. And you've done a lot of interesting things with your life, and you've come a long way. I mean, I don't think we can knock it out in an hour, but we're sure going to try.
Fair enough.
So yeah, and this all got started because, one, I'm kind of sick of the internet and everything that's on it. And I feel like there's more inspiring people out there that don't have that loud voice, that's not screaming in the room and being like, look at me. Although you are the type of individual that's like, look at me, look at how fucking awesome I am.
You think so?
I think so. You're doing some cool shit.
Humility and modesty are some of my traits, but maybe they don't come through.
Sometimes it shines through.
Maybe not traits, but aspirations.
Right. So what is it that you currently do now with your business?
So I've got two businesses. I am a certified financial planner. I have a wealth management and financial planning practice here in Austin.
Yep.
Been doing that. I've had my own shop for about 8 years, and I've been in the industry for 18 years plus.
God, man.
Yeah. And then the more fun job that I have that more people want to hear about.
What? I mean, okay. Anyways, go on. Sorry to interrupt.
Well, like if you put a classroom full of kindergartners together and you say, what do you want to be when you grow up? You know what percentage of them say, I want to be a financial planner and wealth manager?
There's very few people that,
Zero. The answer is zero.
Sure, but I still find that fascinating. But anyways, the other thing.
Well, as we get older, our priorities change, I guess.
That's true.
So the other is a business I have called Fossil Knob Ridge, and it's a set of vacation rentals that we built out of shipping containers located just outside Big Bend National Park.
And do you also sell shirts?
I am wearing the one shirt. We dabbled in merch for about 10 minutes, and then I realized it was not worth the hassle.
Yeah. I just think you're good at building businesses, right? Wouldn't you say so?
I've shown some success at that. Yeah, sure.
But let's take it back
through a lot of trial and error and a lot of failure.
Sure.
It's just if you don't give up, eventually you only have one option, and that's to succeed.
Yeah, like you said, the universe will take care of you if you just keep putting forth a good effort. Let's go back to when you were born, where you were born. Where were you born?
Do people really give a shit?
We'll
Can
find
I say
out.
that on
I
your
don't do that.
podcast?
You could say whatever you want. You could say whatever the fuck you want. This is my
Great,
podcast.
okay.
Yeah, where you born?
I was born in Fort Worth, Texas.
Oh, okay.
I was raised on a couple 100 acres of farm and ranch in north central Texas. That's been in my family since 1916.
Wow. Okay.
In a house that my great-grandfather started in 1932. And as we joke in the family, it's still under construction because my parents keep adding on to it.
My parents never stop adding on, don't they? Do they?
Right?
Don't they? It drives me up the wall. It's like you guys are old enough. Just enjoy it. Stop building. Just live this retired life the way you should, or the way I want to. When did you move to Stephenville, or when did you guys move to Stephenville?
That's where it is.
That's where. Okay. All right. Got it.
It's in a little town north of there called Morgan Mill.
What'd your parents do growing up?
My mother is a retired college English and speech professor.
Oh.
And my dad is a State Farm agent and has been for 52 years.
Where'd you go to college?
Tarleton State University, class of 04, presidential honors, summa cum laude. Not that anyone cares because zero people have ever asked me what my GPA was.
Well, now you get to now you get to say that.
So just trying to throw it out there. Modesty.
Did you know you wanted to go to college?
Growing up, we had a rule, and I'm the youngest of three. And by the time I came along, my parents kind of had the shenanigans figured out.
Okay.
And so the rule was when you finish high school, you can either spend 4 years in college or 4 years in the military. We don't care which. And I was terrified. I didn't even want to live in a dorm, much less go to the military. So college was not an option for
What
me.
year did you graduate high school?
2001.
Oh, so that was right around the prime time of shit popping off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not a
Yeah.
great
I wouldn't want to join the military.
Yeah.
either.
Afghanistan was a big thing right then.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I don't think I got that option. I think I was just told you're going to go to college and then you're going to be somebody, and poof, money will come your way. I wasn't really given a game plan.
I have a liberal arts degree, and that's not how it panned out for me.
Well, actually, it did. I have a liberal arts degree as well, but it did work out for me because I was like, well, I better do something with this, or otherwise it was just a complete waste of money.
Well, and you know what? The College of Liberal and Fine Arts at Tarleton has me as a guest lecturer a couple of times a year. And one of the talks that I give is, if you want to be an engineer, you need an engineering degree. Yep. If you want to be a nurse, you need a nursing degree. Right. There's a lot of technical fields that you need academic education in order to get into that field. So if you go to college and get an engineering degree, they teach you how to be an engineer. If you go to college and get a nursing degree, they teach you how to be a nurse. If you go to college and get a liberal arts degree, they teach you how to think for yourself. And if you can successfully apply those lessons that you learned through sociology and psychology and all the interaction that you have with language and culture and everything else, then you can apply that to the business side of your life. You can apply that to the social side of your life. Yeah. Make you a much more well-rounded person.
Okay. Well, however you want to feel about it, that's cool.
You look despondent, just like the college kids when I give that lecture.
But okay, growing up in your education during high school, I was having a conversation with my sister on this podcast, and she's a teacher. She's a kindergarten teacher, and she got her PhD.
Bless her for it.
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of interesting stuff about that episode that I'm really excited to put out. But I asked her, why was it back in the day, we were taught algebra because they said so. We were never taught algebra because it could lead to this career. We're going to do this cool thing in this cool job. Mm-hmm. And I asked her, she's like, why don't they teach that in school? And she goes, well, that just wasn't a thing. We were just taught to. Now it is. Now it is becoming a thing to hey, these are the certain skills that you would need to.
Practical
application. Exactly. Yeah.
Go figure.
I didn't ask her if she was still, or if they were still teaching cursive, because I haven't used cursive in forever. But so do you feel like in your education, Was there some sort of guidance of like, hey, if you do this cool stuff or if you learn these things, you can go on to do this
You can make
job?
a career out of it?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, at least with that conversation I had with my sister, it sounds like things are changing for the better. So,
Well, so I'm not being completely fair. I have a degree in history, and the vast majority of history majors are studying to become history teachers.
yeah.
And I never had any desire to teach. And so I knew I was getting a degree for the sake of getting a degree,
Yep.
not because I needed this technical body of knowledge to help me in a career setting. You know, I minored in sociology and wildlife management and Spanish, and all those things were gearing you up for careers in those fields, whether it was education, academia, or practical application. But I knew in the back of my mind, my career path wasn't really heading in any of those directions.
Yeah.
I was just myopic that you got to have a degree.
Right.
So get you one and then figure it out.
Yeah.
So that's not exactly the smartest, game plan coming out of it. But I didn't know who I was and didn't know what I wanted to be when I grow up. Still don't. I'll figure it out. I'll let you know.
Please do. I'm sure you'll let us know. You'll let me know. Now, flash forward to graduating college. What was the first job that you got after college?
So I was a personal trainer for a year.
Okay, I remember that. Yeah.
Went to the Cooper Institute in Dallas, and for 5 days and $1,000, you could become a personal trainer. Right. Cooper Institute's amazing.
Wow, yeah.
The Cooper Institute is absolutely amazing, but the entry door to get into personal training is pretty low.
Okay.
So came back to Stephenville and worked out at the gym there and built a book of clients.
Yeah.
And I knew the manager of the gym. She was an old family friend, and worked out a deal with her. She said, you can hang out as long as you want. Don't harass people. But if you land any clients, then the way we'll do this is you are completely self-employed on your own. We get a 10% cut, which is an insane deal if you know how personal trainers get paid.
I don't.
It's an insane deal. That was really in my favor. So I just hung out and, asked people questions. And when they had questions about, hey, if you need any help with your form, I'm here to help, but I'm not going to tell you what to do unless you ask for advice.
Yeah.
And wound up getting my first sort of, I'll say book of clients, right? And built that up over a year. And one day, one of my clients, we're working out together, and you get to know your clients really well because you might spend 3 hours a week with them, right? Yeah. Every week for a year. That's a lot of time. And so he turned to me and said, how old are you? I'm 22. He said, have you ever thought about law school? And I said, that's funny. Like, I'm already being paid to be an asshole. Like, I guess I could be paid more if I did. Sure. And I laughed it off and I didn't think anything of it. And then 2 days later, a different client who didn't know the first client said the same thing. He said, you'd make a really good attorney. I was like, what is the thing that all of this has in common? I'm an asshole? I don't know. So that was my impression of attorneys at the time. And then Friday of that week, a third person who is an old family friend said, you really ought to think about taking the LSAT because I think you would make an incredible attorney. And so I was like, okay, the universe is showing me a sign. And if there's anything that I think is valuable to impart on you, your listeners, this is going to sound weird coming from someone who builds plans for a living, who makes plans for a living. It's better to be adaptable and have your eyes open to opportunity than it is to have a plan and execute it no matter what happens in the environment. And so this was the universe saying, you really ought to take the LSAT. And what I thought the universe was saying was, now you're going to be an attorney and your career is set for the rest of your life. So I took the LSAT, aced it, got a full ride to Baylor Law, which is a really hard school to get into and an even harder school to get a scholarship to. And I thought, okay, well, I'll move to Waco, go to Baylor, sure. And I got there. None of my family was in the legal industry. I didn't know really any attorneys. I didn't know anything other than small town law. So I didn't know how many specialties there were in the legal industry. And I get to Baylor and I discover that I have landed myself smack dab in the middle of a litigation school.
Okay.
I am like, my primary character defect is people pleasing. I will people please to the detriment of myself to make sure you like me if unchecked. Done a lot of work around it, so I don't think it's that big of a problem in day-to-day life today. But when all you want is for everybody to get along, being a litigator is not high on your list of career choices.
I need you to invite you to a family reunion one of these years. Man, you could do wonders there.
Yikes.
So how long did you last at Waco?
I was there they're on a quarter system, so I was there for just shy of 2 quarters.
Okay.
My grades were fine, but I was miserable.
Sure.
And wound up walking away from a 6-figure scholarship. And then I cratered. Like, I didn't know. Here I am, I'm 24 years old with a degree in history. And great, I have a liberal arts degree, so I know how to think. Well, nobody wants to pay a 24-year-old because they know how to think. Or because they know a lot about Stuart Dynasty England, right?
Yeah, I don't see a lot of ROI in that for me as a business owner.
So back to the old drawing board. So when I was plotting to leave law school, I was supposed to be studying, and instead of studying, I was making a list of all the things I'd rather be doing. All the places I'd rather go and things I'd rather do. And
you're a big list guy.
I'm a big list guy. I make lists. I'll put shit on there that I've already done just so I can check it off. But when you value your self-worth through productivity, which I don't advise, lists are very important. So I made this list of things I'd rather do. And there was this book that came out that's actually not that great of a book, but at the time it had a lot of influence over me, called Delaying the Real World, a 20-something's Guide to Movement and Adventure, or something, I don't remember. And it's out of publication now, but it was a book full of stories of people in their 20s who joined the Peace Corps and traveled the world, who got a job on a cruise ship and did the Caribbean, who got job as a crew on a private sailboat and sailed around the world. Like, all these crazy things where normally you don't get to do that because you've got kids in school, you're married, you got a job, you got a career, but these kids are portable. And I thought, oh, this sounds up my alley. And because of that, I wound up working in Big Bend National Park, giving Jeep, River, and ATV tours of the national park, which is kind of how I got out there and how I fell in love with the place. It was an escape route from Waco because I didn't know what to do next.
Now, I should ask this when you were on the personal trainer part. When you were going into that career, did you have money saved up to build out your business? Or
No,
okay,
I just finished college.
Right. So what? Like, didn't that scare you of like, I don't have any clients right now. I don't have a sustainable way of life. Did that scare you at all? Or sustainable financial income?
I don't remember being scared. It's just survival.
Okay. Yeah.
I come from generations of scrappy people where if you don't make it happen, it isn't gonna happen. And I by then, like, I had made some money in college. I was, I had a scholarship that actually put money in my pocket after I paid for all my stuff. But I also, during college, this is the most random shit ever.
I love it.
Every semester, I would buy and restore an antique tractor and sell it on eBay.
That is another thing about you that fascinates me, is you're very handy. You're very resourceful. Where does that come from? Does it come from your father? Okay. All right. So
I was raised by Depression-era parents who, you don't throw away the nails that you took out of the wall when you tore it down. I'm not kidding.
Isn't that a slippery slope towards like hoarding?
Yes. Come to my parents' house. I'll show you. They whenever they fill up a storage building, they just buy another shipping container and have it brought in and start filling it up. It's bad.
Got it. Yeah.
But if you need some carpet,
No. Just no. That's already. I'm already getting upset. So you get to Big Bend. Flash forward to getting into finance. What made you want to go in that direction?
I spent about a year traveling around and doing those delaying the real world things. And got tired of I made enough money to buy enough beer to get to tomorrow.
Nice. Okay.
And I kind of got tired of it. I had some not so great experiences, and I thought maybe it's time to like try a quote unquote real job. And at the time, I thought I wanted to stay in my hometown as an adult. And in a town that small, there's not a lot of opportunity. Well, that's not fair. There's not as broad a spectrum of opportunity as you get in a city. And so from my limited point of view of only having ever lived there, if you wanted to make money, you needed to be a doctor, you need to be a lawyer, or, hey, my dad did pretty well as a State Farm agent, maybe insurance is kind of a way to go. And so I knew lawyer was out of the question by now. I missed the boat on med school. I thought about it, and I went to one medical class, and the minute there was blood, it turned green. I was done. So that left insurance. So what happened was I came home from my adventures, and I asked my dad if I could work for him to see if I liked it and see if I was any good at it.
So you're working with family.
Yeah.
Is that cool? Is that fun?
You know what? At the time, my brother was also working for Dad. Marshall, my middle brother, had gone off and done some other work at State Farm after he finished college, and he had come back and was working with Dad to help him with some stuff. And so my dad is incredibly bright, but he's not a very good teacher. My brother is also incredibly bright, but he is a very good teacher. And so the fact that Marshall was there in the beginning was actually really helpful, because Marshall taught me how to read before I went to kindergarten. You know, here's an 8-year-old teaching a 3-year-old their letters. Like, he's just always been a teacher and a mentor and whatever. So him helping me start out was a huge advantage and a huge leg up. There was so much about that job, that career, that did not fit my personality.
It's turning out to be a very dangerous career.
I'm not quite sure what you mean, but all the dangers of the sexy insurance industry, right?
Never mind. That's bad. Never go on. Sorry.
It's the definition of insurance is the transfer of risk. So by definition, it's not that dangerous.
Never mind. Just keep going. Sorry.
We have actuaries for this.
Yeah.
So having Marshall there was great, helped me learn the ropes, and he knew me well enough to help me figure out how to mindfuck myself into enjoying it. Because there were days when I just absolutely didn't.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a very long-lasting career if you have to trick yourself into
8.5 years.
Oh my God.
Not all at Dad's office.
Right, but still.
Well, and what happened was, at the time, State Farm had a little proprietary set of mutual funds, a little sandbox that you could play in and help people with their IRAs. And I got to help somebody actually pull the trigger on retirement. A client of ours was 65, and this is not how we look at retirement today, but at the time, this is almost 20 years ago, he had worked his entire career for an energy company. He was turning 65. They were literally giving him the gold watch. And he wanted to make sure that he never had to worry about money again. He wanted to sit on his front porch and drink lemonade and rock in his rocking chair until the end of his days.
Right off into the sunset.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had a mentor, because nobody's going to trust a 25-year-old with their life savings. I had a mentor who was very experienced, who walked this guy through the process of giving up his career and becoming a retired person. And the psychology that happens there is fascinating. the fears, the concerns, the you get your legs cut out from underneath you from a confidence standpoint. What's my purpose in life? What's my role? How do I? All kinds of fascinating things that happen to people as they end their career. We always think of it as like the goal. How soon can I quit working? But it's a really complex time in someone's life. So I got hooked on that, which changed the course of my career away from insurance and into financial planning, wealth management, etc.
It seems like it can be a very scary thing because you're at not the end of the life, but things are wrapping up.
We don't talk much about end of life
right,
at retirement.
No. That's yeah.
Touchy.
How do you guide a person through that process because they're realizing, well, I only have so much more time left?
Well, I'm not going to get into the technicalities of how we manage their assets differently.
No. I'm talking more about the emotional.
The psychology and the emotion of it. Well, one part of it is if I can create a safe space for them to vent, for them to actually talk about how they're feeling, what's going on in their head, what's keeping them up at night, what's causing anxiety. If I can create a safe space where they feel comfortable sharing that, then we can talk about it. And it's surprising how much just saying it out loud takes the power away from it. On an emotional level. Sure. That doesn't fix the financial side of it. We got to take action. But if they know that they're with a seasoned professional who's done this before, who's successful at, who knows, and you earn that trust and you show them how you're going to do this, you can take a lot of that anxiety and stress off of it. I can't tell you what your purpose in life is after retirement, but I can share a lot of stories about what my other clients have done and what happened to them, and give yourself permission to take a year and just be a bum.
Yeah. Which is that a harder conversation to have with someone who is of the generation from like the 1950s and 60s who's like have worked their entire life and now are like trying to get in that mindset of just relax?
That's a harder conversation with that generation, in my experience, than it is with people in their 40s and 50s. Because the idea of retirement has changed, because that client that I worked with 20 years ago, like he went from working to not working. He just wanted to sit and drink lemonade. Yeah. That sounds like pure hell to me.
It doesn't sound very fun.
It doesn't resonate with our generation and the generation next to us. What we've seen a shift in is, I made a joke earlier. I measure my self-worth through productivity, which is only somewhat a joke. And it's definitely not all that healthy. But if I go a whole day as just a bum on the couch watching TV, by the end of the day, I kind of feel like a terrible person. Because I have trouble giving myself permission to say, hey, you earned a day off. But if I have a day that's full of activity and I can make a list of all the things I did and check off all the things, then I'm a great person. I sleep like a baby. So the idea of retirement where there's nothing to do ever is terrifying to a lot of us. And I'm in the fortunate position of working with a lot of people who really enjoy what they do for a living. And it gives them purpose and fulfillment. And I count myself in that category too. I love my clients and working with them. And the idea of giving that up is part of your identity that you're giving up. It's your role in your community. Like, oh, that's tough. So instead, we start talking about things like, okay, if you didn't have to stop working entirely and you didn't need to work for the money anymore, what would work look like to you? And then my job's to get real quiet and take good notes, because there's going to be some really interesting shit come out of their mouths after that. Because, we've solved the money equation. You can retire, or in some cases, all right, you can retire early. You still need to make a nominal amount of income every year, but you're an entrepreneur. You're going to make that happen anyway. So if I give you permission to dream a little bit and say, how would I spend my time if I'm not worried about money being the bottom line, they'll come back at you with really interesting, you know what? I've always had this passion project. I'd love to volunteer here. I'd love to make this. And they write their retirement job description. And then my job's really easy.
Is that common practice amongst financial planners? Like
Not
taking
that I'm aware of.
Okay, because
one of my clients jokingly refers to me as her financial therapist.
I think you would do very well if you ever became a therapist. Maybe that'll be your next venture.
You know, I've learned there are lots of things that I'm good at that don't bring me joy.
So you stopped being an insurance agent. What was the first job as a financial planner? Did you go work for somebody? Did you go work for a firm?
It was kind of hybrid for a while.
Okay. Hybrid in the insurance world as well as
Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out how to say this in a way that's remotely interesting to literally anybody.
It's just, I'm glad you're thinking. That's your frame of mind. I forgot who I invited on this podcast.
It's a podcast.
Yeah, I get it.
It's a podcast.
No. I just like that you're constantly thinking about like what's the end result of everything. In like, man, how do you sleep at night?
I don't. No, actually.
Anyways, Well. So how did you, what was the next step after being the hybrid?
So I while I was at State Farm, I realized I had this passion for retirement and helping people with their investments, etc. And State Farm, again, had like this little sandbox for us to play in. And while I was doing that, I got at the encouragement of my father, I got a couple of professional designations that are kind of hard to get. But I had the time and bandwidth. I didn't have kids. I didn't have, a whole lot going on. I could, all right, I'll spend this weekend studying. And I was still in that mindset, 100%. And so I got a couple of professional designations that most people who were doing what I do don't ever get, or they don't get until they're middle way through their career in their 40s or 50s. So I moved to Austin in 2010.
Okay.
I was at a networking luncheon for the LGBT Chamber of Commerce, and I met a woman who was with Mass Mutual, which is a life insurance company that does investments and retirement and that kind of stuff too. And I thought, ooh, she might be a good referral partner. I'm going to introduce myself. So I went up and I gave her my business card. I said, I'd love to have lunch with you sometime and see if we can send clients back and forth. Because I know y'all don't do property and casualty insurance and I don't do a lot of what you do. So we could. And she looked at my business card and she said, what the hell are you doing at State Farm with these letters behind your name? Because it was sort of anachronous. If you're in the industry, like, wait, what? Why do you have finance stuff if you're at State Farm? I kind of explained to her and she said, I would love it if you would come to our office and see how we do what we do. And I thought, this may be my ticket.
Was she trying to recruit you for her own business? Okay.
Absolutely. So I went and interviewed with them, wound up interviewing with them, met some incredible people. And they actually hired me not to be a financial advisor, but to train their new recruits on how to do insurance and how to walk people through these retirement conversations that I'd been having for the last 8 years. And so I was really excited about it. At the time I was early 30s, I think. And the thought of like climbing that corporate ladder was really appealing. And yeah, I'm willing to put in all the hours because the potential's there. And I'm finally getting, man, I'm 32 and I'm in management now. Like it was a big ego trip too. And so I took the job and learned a lot. I was there to teach, but I learned way more than I was ever able to instill in anybody else. And in doing that, I spent 3 years in management, and I slowly over time realized, number one, it was really, really difficult. It was not right in my wheelhouse of skill sets. And I started to realize it would be a lot easier, instead of teaching other people how to be advisors, if I just became an advisor and had my own clients, because I was helping all these new people with their clients. I'm sitting in front of clients all day, getting real good at it. And so at the end of 3 years, I got kicked in the teeth professionally. I had a couple of folks that worked for me that were killing it, that I was super proud of, they were just amazing. They're still amazing people. And they both came to me in the same week and said, I love you and I appreciate this opportunity, but this isn't what I want to be when I grow up. I'm going to go do something else. And it just crushed me. It took all the wind out of my sails. I thought, you know what? I think I just want to work with clients. And so I went to the upper management there and I said, I can't do this anymore. And with the numbers I was throwing up, that was no surprise to anybody because I wasn't great at it. And I said, I can't do this anymore. And he said, well, what can we do to keep you around? Because you're good people. And if you're on the bus, but in the wrong seat, what's the right seat on the bus for you? And I said, honestly, the hubris of this is funny to me now. I said, if you'll just give me a career contract, which means you have your own practice, if you'll give me a career contract and then leave me alone, I'll be that guy that's on your leaderboard that other advisors are like, who's that Chase Kincannon guy? I never see him, because you'll never hear a peep out of me. You'll just see my name lights because I'm doing well. I don't want to come to your trainings. I've taught all your trainings. I don't want to go to your convention. Wow. I've been doing it for 10 years.
Dick on the table.
I had nothing to lose.
Right.
And that's a huge part of it, because that set the stage for starting my own practice. And you know exactly how this works. When you go out on your own and you've got 0 clients and you've got 0 income.
Oh, I have a sugar mama, so I wasn't that worried.
Fair enough. Which I didn't at the time. I had a little bit of savings.
No. Yeah. I do get that feeling. I mean, there's still nights. I use this phrase, I'm cooking dinner. I'm like, I don't have any fucking clients next month. I don't have any jobs next month. So this is going to suck.
Ye old pipeline.
Yeah.
So it was that. So they said, absolutely, we'd love to have you as an advisor. That's wonderful. And the rest is history. Finally, I found the place in my industry where I was successful and happy. And I finally figured out what my passion really is, which is being in front of clients. And since then, the practice has grown. I've got a full-time employee now. We're doing awesome things for our clients. And I get up in the morning feeling really lucky to do what I do.
When it comes to starting a business, what is the first thing that goes through your mind? Like, you're brand new. What is the one thing that stands out to you if you're starting a new business?
So I have clients approach me on a regular basis. Crippling fear, paralyzing fear. I have clients approach me with business ideas occasionally, and some are pretty well informed and some are just half-cocked schemes, right? And in general, my gut reaction to a new business idea is research. What can you learn? So I'll use Fossil Knob Ridge, my vacation rentals, as an example.
Yeah.
Okay. I wound up with some land out there through this sweetheart deal with a friend of a friend. And I was going out there all the time to visit because I love the area. And I thought, hey, if I could figure out a way to build like a tiny home on this place for a small amount of money, then I can stop paying for hotels and whatever else while I'm down here. And so the next evolution of that thought was, well, when I'm not down there, if it's nice enough, I could throw it on Airbnb and rent it out when I'm not using it. Well, I can't manage it from 500 miles away from Austin to Big Bend, so maybe I should see about a property manager. So I called the people I knew down there and said, who's a good property manager? So they introduced me to Daryl and Janet. Had lunch with Daryl and Janet and said, this is what I'm thinking about doing. Is this a good idea or not? And they said, we've seen people do this and have great success. We've seen people do this and not do so well. So what's the difference? And they told me the formula for the people who are successful. Okay. Then I got on Airbnb and I looked at vacation rentals in the area and I looked on their calendars, and you can see how many nights they're booked. And you can see what their nightly rate is.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
And if you multiply the two, you get an idea of gross revenue, right?
Yeah.
So from there was born an actual business plan.
That idea seems so simple. I would have never thought to look in that, like, just look at their calendar.
Right. So before we ever started, my goal for that particular business was break even. I wanted the business to pay for my vacation home. Like at the time, my deal was I want to be the only 35-year-old I know with a vacation home, right? And so if it generated enough revenue to offset the cost, I had a good idea of what it would cost because I have some construction background growing up on a ranch. My uncle's an architect, and so he put together the plans for us. And then I had a reasonable expectation of how much I could charge per night and what my occupancy would look like. And so, before we spent any money developing this undeveloped land, I had a pretty good working business plan on paper. I've never had a class in college that teaches you how to make a business plan. I don't have an MBA. But I always have a plan. Whether it would pass muster for any MBA course of what a good business plan looks like, I couldn't tell you. But
I don't want to diverge. I do want to talk about that the Fossil Knob Bridge, but I kind of want to stick to the financial plan of things. What is it about money that most people don't understand? I know that's kind of a very broad question, but what's a simple concept about money that people don't understand and don't get, at least here in America?
Spend less than you earn.
Now, is that more so about emotional attachments and?
It's actually really complex. And
go on.
It's kind of a shitty thing for me to just pop off and say, you should spend less than you make, because there's a lot of people who barely make enough to get by, right? And it's not because they're afraid of working hard. It's not because they don't have education. It's not because of a lot of reasons. It's just the way our capitalistic system is set up. But the fundamental issue is, even if it's very slightly less, you spend less than you earn. If that means you're contributing to your 401k, great. If that means you're putting something in a savings account, great. So getting your calories in more than your calories out is a really important concept for people to grasp with their own personal finances.
Why does it seem like all the jobs you've done kind of just lead into one big thing that you've accomplished with your life?
Does it seem that way?
Well, calories in, you were a personal trainer, calories in versus calories out. Like somehow you managed to make a roundabout way to lead it back to financial planning. Going into our capitalistic system here in America, is it good? Is it bad? Are you indifferent?
It doesn't matter what we think about it.
Yeah.
We exist in that world and
we have to play the game.
We have to play the game, and the better you know the rules, or the better you surround yourself with people who know the rules, the better you're going to do.
Well, how do you, how does one who doesn't know anything about our system research other than saying the internet?
You know what? The internet really isn't a great tool, because you can find for this kind of research.
Yeah.
Because you can find something on the internet to support almost any theory you can come up with. Is Bitcoin good? Is Bitcoin bad? You're going to find websites that are definitive with proof and evidence on both sides of that Bitcoin argument, right?
Right.
So for me, that means job security, because you can't go Google how to do my job, right? There's so many things, there's so many tools that we use in finance that aren't inherently good or bad. They can just be used properly or improperly, right? And so having an experienced person who is a fiduciary, which is a big differentiator in our industry, that you trust, that knows what they're doing to help you through those decisions, is really important.
So almost like people like you.
Almost. People that you trust, though.
Right. That's part of why I think you're so successful and interesting, is because you do make people feel comfortable and you know a lot. And that's the whole point of the show, is to get you, professionals like yourselves, out there who I trust and like are going to provide a good service and good product and kind of lead people down the right path. Now, going back to the Bitcoin, Is that real? Fake? Is it dumb? Is it stupid? What? Because 10 years ago, I had this conversation with another guy who's he's managing some hedge funds for big companies. A really awesome dude, and he's like, Ramon, it's just play money. Don't even think about it. Don't even work.
Right?
Yeah, don't even think about investing it. But that was 10 years ago. So where does it stand now?
Hire me and I'll tell you.
I don't want to pick. You're too expensive. I don't want to find out that answer. But overall, in general, will it ever become a real thing? Is it something to consider? I know you're not giving advice, but
it
seems like it's
legally restricted from giving advice.
Yeah. But is it something that is going to take over the dollar? Can you say that?
Here are some Googleable facts about Bitcoin.
Sure.
The underlying asset under the investment has no inherent value, which is problematic. Because of that, no institutional investor is putting Bitcoin in their model portfolios. Are there Bitcoin ETFs and mutual funds? Sure. But when they came out, even the companies that were putting them together were like, hey, you people asked for these, but we don't even recommend them. And so have people made a ton of money in Bitcoin? Sure. It's very speculative. Is it always inappropriate? That's a tough thing to say, right?
Yeah.
But it does have some fundamental flaws that all the professionals agree on.
Okay, good. Another question I have, and I think this will be the last finance one. We have a new administration coming in this year. How does that affect our economy? Should people be scared? Should people be at peace with what's coming? What?
People are scared.
Yeah.
And I'll start this by saying, when we're talking about finances and investments, I'm politically agnostic.
Sure.
Because you don't want your political leanings to guide your investment decisions.
Yeah.
You don't want your emotions to guide your investment decisions, which is why you need a third-party investment manager who isn't emotional about your money.
Right.
Right. So here's some things we know. Again, Googleable facts. But you wouldn't know to Google it unless you had somebody to talk to.
Right, yeah.
I'm going to mess up the year, but I'm going to say every presidential election cycle since 1960, election year has seen more volatility in the markets than other years. And then, again, don't quote me on this because I didn't know there would be a quiz. Every year since 1960, the year after a presidential election, the S&P 500 has never seen anything less than double-digit growth. Does that mean it's going to happen this time? There's absolutely no guarantee. We just know, looking back, this is what's happened in the past, and we can use that to factor into our decisions for moving forward. Without getting too specific, we don't make investment decisions based on hypotheticals. And right now, we don't know how much of the new administration's campaign promises were just campaign rhetoric versus what's going to become an actual policy recommendation that they're going to try to push through. And of the ones that do become policy recommendation, even with the Republican House and Senate, we're not sure how effective this administration is going to be at enacting those policies. So the institutional investment managers that I work with are saying, we're going to continue based on the data that we have, that's real hard data, to manage how these portfolios are invested. And as the situation changes, we'll adapt to it. But some of the questions I'm getting now, should I cash everything out and put it in cash? Should I take all my cash and put it in the market? There's a lot of fear and anxiety and concern.
Right.
And, not to be too glib about it, but the best thing you can do with your money right now is give it to a professional to manage for you.
You're really good at what you do. You know that? Well, no, it's interesting that you say all that, because I was having a conversation with another videographer who gave me a history lesson in Bitcoin. And for all I know, he could have been a professional Bitcoin expert. But that's because he spent all his time in doing doing research. In the back of my head, I'm like, yeah, this guy sounds really smart, but what is his occupation? Oh, he does what I do. He films stuff. So I'll take his information with a grain of salt, and then I'll talk to my expert friend in finances who knows how to, make a buck or two.
Who's not trying to sell you anything.
Right. Yeah. So that was a very interesting conversation to have with someone who I thought was just like me, but obviously had way more knowledge in this one thing. And I'm like, that's interesting. But you're not a professional, so therefore, I don't want to have pints with you. See what I did there?
Not on that subject. Anyway.
Right. So when you started Fossil Knob, when did you know that you could turn it into something that it is today? Or did you know that you could turn it into something that it is today?
So we opened in March of 2018. And for the rest of 2018, every penny that it made went right back into it.
Right.
Because I got a lot of stuff wrong and didn't realize as I was building it, oh, you can't set it up this way. Oh, you can't have glass tabletops in a vacation rental. Oh, you can't. And so every penny went right back into it. And I'm going, at some point, I'd like to, actually start paying all this shit off.
Well, before I even get into that aspect of it, like, that area is it's special to me. I think that's why we made a connection, is because, I'm from that area, the Big Bend area, and it's very beautiful and all that.
And I got you drunk.
All that too. You got me hammered. You almost made a move on me, guy. No, I'm kidding. But
you're cute, but you're not my type.
I know. What? How dare you?
I'm
sir?
Kidding. You're absolutely my type.
Oh, thank
Straight
you.
boys.
All right, we can. Got me. All right. But no, that place is very special because it's very secluded. It's very isolated. It's very untouched by humans because it's a rough landscape.
Yeah.
Why on earth did you think you could make it there?
So, by the way, you've been there and you've seen it and you get it.
Yeah.
But for your listeners who haven't,
That's true. I always think about.
Our Instagram is at Fossil Knob KNOB Ridge, and our website is fossilknobridge.com, and we have some pretty epic video on our website that Ramon here did for us, and some pretty epic photos that we've done that a lot of our guests have provided for us.
Yeah.
And one of the more common comments that we get in our guest books and in our reviews is
how awesome the video is.
Absolutely. It's no matter how awesome that video was, being here blew our minds. It's so much better than you expect.
Right.
So I'm always worried, no matter what I'm doing, you never want to overpromise and underdeliver. You always flip that script, right? Yep. So even in the beginning, I was worried, like, hey, there's these amazing sunset shots that we're putting up on our Instagram or whatever. And I want to make sure that we're not disappointing people when they show up. And perpetually the feedback is, holy shit, this place is way better in person than we ever imagined. So that's been awesome. My property managers have several other properties that they manage in the area, and they did a great job educating me on what to expect in terms of seasonality, in terms of rate, in terms of the occupancy. And so, again, research, surround yourself with experts in that field, etc. And we built a really great relationship. What happened after the first full year, because that first 2018 was just putting money right back into it. At the end of 2019, I looked at it and said, oh, wow, this made quite a bit of money. I'm shocked. And I think your question is why is that the case?
Yeah. Why did you think it?
But going back to your previous question, that was when I started to realize, hey, if this makes a good amount of money, then why don't I have more of these? I've got 10 acres. Now we've got 20 and we're hoping to expand more than that. But what if I had 2? What if I had 3? What if I had 4? From a revenue standpoint, does this scale? And so that was we were letting the universe tell us whether we should put any more resources into this particular asset.
Yeah, but resources are so scarce out there, and this is the Big Bend area, Terlingua. I don't. The word scalability in a remote area like that doesn't make sense to me at all.
I'll put it this way: we're a gateway town into the national park.
Yeah.
We're situated between the 800,000 acre national park and the 250,000 acre state park, right? And don't quote me on these figures; I'm going to butcher them. But I want you to note the trend. In 2010, Big Bend National Park had about 330,000 visitors. In 2019, so not quite 10 years later, before the pandemic, Big Bend National Park had 450,000 visitors. Skip 2020 because of the pandemic and the park was closed for a long time. 2021, 590,000 visitors to Big Bend National Park. Again, don't quote me on the exact numbers, but this huge increase. And so we're seeing, well, and before I go on, since then we've seen a little bit of a drop because we're seeing people return to pre-COVID travel habits. During COVID, Big Bend was on fire because people had a misconception, quite frankly, that getting out away from everything would be safer from a health perspective. So we were slam packed for several years, but you think about it, Terlingua is a tiny town, and I don't know how many beds are down there for rent, right? Hotel rooms, etc. But let's say there's 200. Let's say there's 400. Let's say there's 600. That's servicing how many 100,000 visitors to the national park? So I had the same question for my property manager before I decided to expand because, hey, if I'm going to put more money into this, I need a reasonable expectation of return, right? I know there's risk, but I'm going to try to educate myself into as much as I can. And he said, what you're doing is a higher quality rental than most of what's around here. You have the view of the Chisos Mountains. You've got that $1 million view. You're doing things right. If we start to see tourism fall here, you're going to be one of the last properties that feels it. It's the RV on somebody's 5 acres in the middle of nowhere that's going to stop getting rented. And since then, we've seen a little bit of that. But it was a lot of research and figuring out with this, in the grand scheme of things, talk to enough people saying, yeah, and even the national park system is putting a lot of money into expanding the infrastructure inside the park because they're anticipating more and more visitors over time.
My next question is, how does that region stay sustainable for the people that are coming in? Like, if you have this influx of people, they need to eat, they need to drink water. Like, how do you factor that in to your specific, Fossil Knob Bridge?
So one of the common misconceptions about the area is that water is a problem. Well, that's not fair. Water is absolutely a problem there, but it's not whether there's water to be had. It's the infrastructure to get the water to the people.
Right.
I've talked to the people who maintain the wells for the Studi Butte Water Supply Corporation, which feeds Terlingua and Studi Butte and the surrounding area. And he said, there's more water down here than we'll ever need or use. That's not the problem. It's that we don't have the pipes laid across this weird geography to get it to all the people who want it. And so many people out here live so remotely that we physically can't get it to them. So there's not a shortage of water. There's a shortage of water infrastructure. And until that infrastructure gets built, which to my knowledge, there's no plan to do so, you're going to see very limited. You're not going to see McDonald's show up, or at least I hope not.
Yeah. That would be a very sad day. If that
they're
happened.
getting a Dollar General and everybody's pissed.
Well,
everybody's pissed. If you ever go down there, please don't shop at the Dollar General. Make sure and visit the Cottonwood and support the locals who've been supporting the local economy for the last 20 years.
Now, with the allure of the area, it's going to attract people who want to move there. What are the problems that these individuals are running into other than the water issue?
Just don't do it. If you think you want to move there, I challenge you to spend the month of August there. Actually, August is kind of pretty. Spend June or July there. August, they get their monsoons and the rains come.
I was going to say,
green.
like, June, July is hot.
But June, July, it's pretty brutal. We had a saying, everything down here is expensive except land. And that's no longer the case either, because land has skyrocketed there because so many people think, oh, I want to go. And so,
and because of that, well, go ahead, finish yours.
A huge swath of the land between the two national parks is part of a property owners association called the Terlingua Ranch. In the bylaws for Terlingua Ranch, I'm going to skip over a whole bunch of stuff. Because it's part of Terlingua Ranch, no bank will give you a mortgage on property on Terlingua Ranch. It has to do with access and roads and public access, et cetera, easements. And so if you buy in that area, chances are, Terlingua Ranch is like 250,000 acres. Chances are the land you want is on Terlingua Ranch. The chances are no bank is going to lend you money to develop it, to build your retirement home on it, to build a second home on it, et cetera. So it's limited to people who have cash to do something like that. Most people who are doing it don't have a lot of cash. So they cash out part of their 401k and they buy 10 acres and then they put a shitty old RV on it. And then they get on the Facebook groups and say, who delivers water out here? Hey, who does solar work? Who does, because they can't get on the grid. It's a hassle.
They didn't do their research. They had a dream and they were following it blindly without questioning, like put the shoe on the other foot and play devil's advocate and say, how is this going to not work? If this doesn't work, what is it that's going to make it fall apart? How do the locals feel about the growing income, the growing, not the growing population, but the growing revenue sources of the area, I guess?
It's mixed. Well, so the only revenue source down there is tourism.
Right.
Period.
Property tax is going up, right?
That's a whole nother conversation. But locals are mixed. And I'm going to overgeneralize and paint them into two categories. One is the group of people who understand that change is inevitable, and a lot of the changes that are happening are good for the local economy and good for the local people. They face some serious challenges, logistically and otherwise. And they're probably involved in tourism, and when there's more tourists, they make more money, and that's good for them, right? So there's a contingent of people who are perfectly okay with it and willing to roll with the punches. And then there's another contingent of people who moved out there to get away from everybody else. And one of the locals I know called it last pioneer syndrome. Like, now that I've got my land, nobody else can have any of theirs. It's a double-edged sword of there's no code or anything down there to prevent you from doing whatever you want to on your own land, which means your neighbor can do whatever they want to also, whether you like it or not. And so I think a lot of folks down there bemoan that it's not the Terlingua it used to be. And I completely understand that, but
Don't Marfa my Terlingua.
Don't Marfa my Terlingua. And there's plenty of folks down there who are doing just that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like they're still benefiting somewhat from the local economy getting a shot in the arm from all the tourism that's happening there.
Yeah. I remember Marfa saw this big, growth because people were moving there because the land was so cheap. And now, well, yeah, not anymore. But the problem is now, like, their school district is not as rich as it should. It's not as rich as the property taxes should allow it to be, I guess. So because they are, I don't know, poor is not the right word, but because the area is so rich in property taxes, they have to give more money. More money is going outside. Yeah. Right. When, as a matter of fact, they actually need all that money for themselves.
Right.
So how do you solve that problem when these poor affected school districts need that money, but it's going somewhere else?
Well, what you're talking about are the Robin Hood laws.
There you go. Yeah.
And you need to write letters to your legislators about it. That's what you need to do.
Yeah.
Because that's got to come from the state capitol.
Cool. So do that, viewers.
There's really not anything that can be done on a local level. It's a state law and state legislation.
How do you protect the coolness of the area? Because it's like, it once was a hidden gem, but I feel like COVID kind of sparked its explosion in how cool the place is.
Everything ebbs and flows. I think one of the things that makes that area magical is that we've set aside, between the national park and the state park, we've set aside over 1 million acres for preservation, to not change, to just be nature. And I don't think nature is ever going out of style. I don't think there's going to be a generation of people who none of them are recharged by being in nature, right? So and we're not really making any new national parks. And this is the only one in Texas, other than Guadalupe. And so I think because of that protected parkland, that's going to do a lot to protect what's special about it. And if you look at some of the more popular national parks, or the national parks that have a heavier visitor load each year, Yellowstone, Glacier, etc., the towns on the edges of those, the towns at the entrances to those parks don't look like Terlingua. They're bigger, but they still don't feel, for the most part, corporate. It's not suburbia. It's not a big city, right? It's a town that's the people in that town understand what makes this special is our proximity to this amazing national resource that we have. And so we that is reflected in our architecture and our city laws and our street names and all that stuff that make it different from wherever you live, right? So I think that's a lot of it is baked in how it's going to stay special. Some of the other stuff, and when you get out of that and talk about just the town of Terlingua, I think there's like 14 restaurants down there now, but people don't realize 20 years ago there were 12. How much has it really changed? And we're providing more things for people to do when they get there. And so as long as it doesn't get developed by corporate America, and with their infrastructure problems that might never happen, then it's going to stay pretty special.
Okay. Yeah, I was about to ask you, like, do you ever see McDonald's? Which I don't think a McDonald's will ever be there.
Well, never say never.
Yeah.
Because now we've got cell phone towers and a Dollar General, and that's definitely not the Terlingua vibe that people go there for.
But to your point, like, infrastructure is definitely a huge issue for the good,
right? Because
it's going to keep those corporate bastards out of it. One of my favorite things that you said about while we were there was, like, those mountains don't care. They'll be there. They were there before you. They will be there after you. So whatever you do in this life, it's not as significant as you think it is. So live the life that you want.
Right.
What are other people saying about this area, and, like, kind of conclusions that they've come to in being out there, being at your space specifically?
That is, you hit the nail on the head. That's one of the things that made me fall in love with the place, was just sitting there in the shadow of those mountains, realizing, what I've got going on isn't that big a deal, because these mountains have been here for millions of years. They're going to be here for millions more. They don't give a shit whether I have money in my bank account, or if my spouse is mad at me, or if my boss is treating me right, whatever. It doesn't matter. So that connection with nature, we get a lot of comments about the night sky. So Terlingua is in a dark sky preserve that's several million acres, which means there are strict rules about your lighting at night. It has to be shielded and downfiring. It can't create light pollution. So when you walk outside, you can see thousands more stars than you can see in most any other area, not just in Texas, but in the United States. So we call it astrotourism, people who are coming specifically just for the night sky. There's a great poster in the national park that says half the park is after dark. And it's great. It's fabulous. Like, go get that commune. So when people go out there, they have, usually a magical few days to experience this vast and rugged region day and night. And it's not close to anything. Most of our visitors are from Texas. Not all by any stretch of the imagination, but most of them come from Austin, San Antonio, Houston, Dallas. And no matter how you slice it, you're probably, chances are, driving 8, 10, 12 hours home after you've spent several days in the company of these mountains. And that windshield time, that full day of sitting there watching not a lot of scenery go by, is sort of a forced meditation.
Yeah.
So the most interesting thing I hear from people is how their trip out there changed them in ways they didn't realize it was going to. So it's not like, going to an amusement park or going to Vegas or whatever. You come back from Vegas hungover. You come back from Big Bend maybe a little bit changed.
Yeah.
So people, they'll say, I realized I needed to propose to my girlfriend. I realized I needed to quit my job, right? I realized I needed to quit my job. My boss is an asshole, and this isn't what I want to do for a living. People come back and they have that perspective that nature and time away gives them. And the question is whether they have the courage when they get home to act on it.
I'm going to do my best to try to wrap this up into another question. But being at that place, it changed me in a way, just like you said, it did everyone else. And it changed me in a way to where I realized some of the problems that I'm encountering in my life just aren't as significant. And not only my own problems, but the world problems. And I feel like as an individual, you can only do so much to help out other communities and whatnot. And the most important thing I found out there is I have to take care of myself first before I can take care of other people. How do you navigate life as it stands today with all the problems in not only in America, but in the world? And I've learned a lot being out there. It's like, again, you can't really control the world. You can only control how you respond to it.
You promised these would be easy questions.
I know, but a lot of this is the
what do we do in
these
life?
Are the like I could ask you softball stupid questions, but I don't find that fascinating by any means. In order to get to know an individual, some of these answers, I don't know, they're interesting to me.
So it's no secret I'm a person of long-time recovery, and some of the tenets that I have learned on that journey are really helpful for me personally when I'm looking at the world from the perspective that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
One is to realize how little of this is actually under my control. There's the old serenity prayer, and whether you subscribe to any kind of higher power is none of my business. But help me to understand what I can control and what I can't, and the wisdom to know the difference. When you start looking and applying that to everything you see on the news or read in the paper or whatever, you start to realize my hula hoop is pretty small. And if it ain't my hula hoop, it can cause a lot of anxiety, dread, worry, excitement, etc. But to what end, right? Outside my hula hoop. Doesn't mean I don't care. Doesn't mean I'm indifferent to the problems of the world or anything else, but it helps put it in perspective. Now then, that's counterbalanced by another huge tenet, which is you really need to be of service to others. And you're right. You gotta put your oxygen mask on before you put somebody else's on. Don't give of yourself until you're spent, because then you can't give anymore. But you have to have a system in place in your life to be of service to others. And then the third part of that is, and read Brene Brown. She has some really interesting research on this. People who score higher in terms of life satisfaction, family satisfaction, job satisfaction, etc. One of the things that she found in her research that they all have in common is they have some sort of structured, active, daily way of marking their gratitude. Whether it's sharing a gratitude list, whether it's journaling, something like that, of here's some things I'm grateful for today. It's amazing how that changes your brain chemistry. No matter who's in office, no matter how much is in your bank account, no matter how many clients you have booked next month or not, you always need to be able to find something to be grateful for. And if you're still stuck in your own head after that, go out and help somebody else. And you'll feel better.
Well, that's pretty good advice.
Just passing along what's been passed to me.
So we're well past an hour, and you thought I don't know why you're so nervous.
Very nervous. I'm always
you don't show it. Like your BNI speeches.
I'm being facetious.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Get me nervous.
Oh. What is the next big thing going on in Fossil Knob Ridge? I know you're putting in another house room / container.
Right now we're up to 5 vacation rentals, and I'll be out there later this month. Here it's January to hopefully finish up number 6. I don't know that we're going to build more rentals on the property.
Yeah.
What we're going to do is start pouring resources into what we've got and making it more of an experience. Whether it's adding square footage to the ones that are already there, or we're talking about doing a hiking path. We're trying to acquire some neighboring property. I don't know if it's going to happen or not. So I think what we're trying to do is our ideal suggested itinerary. Most people are out there 3 days and 4 nights. Day 1, do the national park. Day 2, do the state park. We've got all this on our website of what to go and see. And then give yourself a flex day where if there is something you want to go back and do that hike we didn't have time for, great. Or if you just want to take a day and be a bum and lounge around and enjoy the property, like absolutely. So we suggest people build in that flex day of like, don't have every minute planned of the whole trip because you need to be able to adapt.
Walk around naked in the front yard.
You can do that too. Not that it ever happened.
Because you have it set up that way to where you can just be in your birthday suit.
One of our rules of development is if you're sitting on your porch of your rental, then nobody else can see you and you can't see anybody else. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, go enjoy.
Last thing I want to talk to you about is business negotiations. I don't know how this fits in the entirety of it, but how do you approach a business negotiation, whether it be price, whether it be, with a partner? Like, what is your mindset in like negotiating whatever in regards to business?
Have good attorneys.
Mitch Zoll?
Absolutely.
Shout out.
He's done some contracts for us. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, just break it down to the bare minimum. Like if the constant thing that I'm in struggle with is like, how much do you charge? My retort is, well, what's your budget? And then it just goes back and forth.
Ooh.
So
that's dangerous.
Yeah, exactly.
So, as a business owner, know your worth.
Yeah.
And if the problems that stem from that either come from the fact that you're in a business model that doesn't work. In other words, you have a product that nobody's willing to pay for, or not enough people are willing to pay for you to make a living off of it.
Right.
Or it's an issue of the business owner doesn't know their own worth, and therefore they're always under earning. And it's tough. It takes some ganas to say, like, here's my price list, no matter who you are or aren't.
Right.
And I'll tell a funny story. I used to work with a woman who ran the Seattle LGBT Chamber of Commerce. And she was this nut-cutting son of a bitch Jewish lady. She was amazing. Oh, my God, she was awesome. And she would tell the story about fundraising. So she's in Seattle, where Boeing is headquartered, right?
I love Seattle.
If I'm not mistaken. And she approached Boeing and said, we would like for you to be our premier sponsor this year at the $5,000 level. And this is everything that we do for you which was, they had never sold a $5,000 sponsorship before.
But that's nothing to Boeing.
So this was shooting for the stars,
really?
Right? Like,
okay.
And Boeing would never even call him back. And 4 or 5 years into it, she said, you know what? I think this is a problem of not knowing our worth. So she wrote them a proposal for a $50,000 sponsorship. And Boeing's simple response was to send a check.
I don't understand that philosophy or that way of thinking. I don't understand how
she wasn't asking the local hair salon to cut her a check for $50,000. So know your market. Know your target audience, right. Your target market, and know their capabilities, and figure out what you're good at, and stay in that hula hoop. Get your area of expertise, get your niches that you enjoy and that you're good at, that you've networked your way into. And if you do the next right thing, the universe will put those opportunities in front of you.
So I got to work on my hips is what you're saying.
Hell
Get that hula hoop going.
Mm-hmm.
Damn it, I was going to have another question. Damn it, Chase. That's all I got.
I don't know how you have all these questions laid out in your mind without notes. Because me being the list maker, I'm impressed with your...
Well, it also helps that I kind of know everyone that I invited. I know their kind of background loosely, so I can feed them like softball questions. And with a guest like you that can just spew out is not the right word, but just give us great information that is usable. Like that whole video that I made, I could have used every single bit of it, but in order to attract an audience and to retain their attention, I had to chop it down to I think 11 minutes or whatever it was.
You're saying I'm overly loquacious.
No, you're just really good at talking.
That's what I do for a living.
Yeah, that's all I got. Are you going to be at BNI this Thursday?
I am not.
Oh, is Robert going to be there?
Robert will be there.
Hell
I'm
yeah.
going to be in Terlingua.
Oh,
Hopefully on top of some shipping containers with a welder and a chop saw.
that's where you want to be. Huh?
Yeah. When it's Thursday at noon and your office is, there's the Chisos Mountains in the distance, like you're doing something right.
Is Chris going with you? Or is he staying here?
No, somebody got to stay here and work.
Oh man, he's another guy that I want to have on. The fascination that I have.
He's way better at podcasts.
Well,
than I am.
no. Oh my God. If that's the case, then wow.
You should see the texts of tips he was giving me before I got. It was like
I don't think you need any tips to come on this particular podcast. But no, the fascination that he's kind of built a business out of fake eyelashes.
Right.
That's wild, and that's why I love living
got
on.
His own little empire.
That's why I love living.
Followers on
that's
Instagram.
why I love living in this.
Pro.
That's why I love living in this planet, in this earth, is because you can create something out of nothing if you do it the right way and if you're authentic, and
willing to work hard.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that maybe that's a good ism to end on. Is I think back on the jobs that I've had that were not fulfilling for me. The personal trainer, lawyer, insurance, etc.
Yeah.
I was always willing to climb the ladder. I just didn't know what wall I needed to prop it up against. And I should have spent more time figuring that out than just blindly climbing the ladder.
Yeah.
And I assume a lot of your listeners are entrepreneurial in spirit. Like, know what wall your ladder needs to be propped against.
Yeah.
Know what your value is. Know what it is you're doing, who you are, who your business is.
So the things that I took away from this conversation: spend less than you make, and do your research.
I love it.
All right, that's it. That's all I got.
And poof.
Thank you so much, Jace.
Now you have accomplished all your financial goals and dreams.
I have. Now, if only my bank account reflected
Let's
that.
go fuck off in Terlingua for another 6 months.
Let's do it.